I was thinking as you're talking, Ty, about a warrior. When he's on the battlefield, he can't show his weaknesses. He could be, you ever seen some, where someone's wounded and they just keep fighting. But then when they get into that safe place, they can open up and show their wounds. And I think that's for all of us. We got to have those places that we can rest, those places that we can reveal our wounds, and they can begin to heal. But also knowing in the moments in the fight, you know what? I'm not going to let you have any victory right now, devil. I got to stay the course. But that rest, that restoration is just as important. So pushing through in a season, but knowing the right moments to pull back. And I think that's where sometimes the need is the people who'll put beside you or stand in that gap for you so you can take that step back in that season. And I was thinking a while ago, as we've talked about needing or receiving, sometimes that gift is just as important when your kids see you receiving as when they see you giving, because that lets them know, you know what, I'm going to go through tough seasons in my life and I have to be just as willing to receive as to give, because God works in all those things. So good.
Chris, you were going to say something earlier.
Yeah, this just really resonates with me because of like what I do with clients when we go over their identity, when we talk about their calling. And God has shown me that we all have two different identities that we fight with: the identity that the world has trained us to be, and then who God has created us to be. And Ty, as you were speaking, and you're like, I'm a strong Black woman. It's like the reality is that that is the identity that the world has given you. Your mom, your aunt, your sisters, whatever it is, those strong women in that family, like that identity has been imparted into you, but that comes from the world. It doesn't come from the Lord. Nowhere in the Bible does it say that God has called us to be strong Black women. He's called us to be children of God. And so as you were sharing that, it just made me think of, I was studying this verse actually last night and this morning, 2 Corinthians 12, 7 through 10, where Paul is talking about the thorn in his flesh. And he says, so to keep me from becoming proud, I was given a thorn in my flesh, a messenger from Satan to torment me and keep me from becoming proud. 3 different times I begged the Lord to take it away. Each time he said, my grace is all you need. My power works best in weakness. So now I am glad to boast about my weaknesses so that the power of Christ can work through me. That's why I take pleasure in my weaknesses and in the insults, hardships, persecutions, and troubles that I suffer for Christ. For when I am weak, then I am strong. And the reality is when we look at children, they are weak, but their faith is strong. Like children have a level of faith that we can't even comprehend. Like, when your kid says, I'm going to live on the moon one day, they actually believe it. They have a level of faith that we lost, coming into this world. And so they are weak in the world, but they are strong in the spirit because they have faith. And so much of the identity that's imparted into us by this world is that you need to be strong, you need to be independent. And that looks, appealing to the world, but in reality, behind that is the enemy just imparting the orphan spirit. An orphan has to figure it out. An orphan has to fend for themselves. An orphan is a little kid living in the streets, finding his own food, fighting for his own territory, building his own home, comforting himself, taking care of himself. And so he doesn't even know how to receive, versus a child who's in a home with their father. Like, they know how to receive. We know kids know how to receive. They know how to ask for what they want and they receive it. And sometimes they forget to say thank you, which is why you have to remind them, what do you say? Thank you. Oh, yeah, yeah, thanks, whatever. Just give me more of what I want. And it's like we get conditioned out of that, and we get conditioned to, you got to be your own provider. And so as empowering as this strong Black woman identity is, it could also be an entry point for the enemy to come in and bring in that orphan spirit and try to get you to live into this identity that you're the solution creator, you're the provider, but the Lord is doing that. But it creates this weight that you're not meant to carry, because you're a child of God, and children are weak. They are weak. Paul says, I boast in my weaknesses because that's when Christ shows his strength. And so what I've learned through all the coaching that I've done is that we waste so much time and energy trying to be who the world taught us to be, which is why it's so hard for us to ask for help, because the world convinces you, you got this, you can figure it out. You're an entrepreneur, you're this, you're that, you're a woman, you're a man, you're this. And it's like we become our own providers and we edge God out of our lives